Hello all, my name is Yossi, and today's short lesson is one of several that I discuss Isaiah chapter 53. Today I would like to discuss biblical chapter division. This lesson is dedicated to the memories of my parents, my father and teacher Avram Shmuel ben Simcha Bunim, and my mother and teacher Chana bat Shimon. Whenever I discuss the Tanach, what Christians call the Old Testament with Christians, one of the first chapters that comes up is Isaiah 53. There are many problems with this chapter as a proof text, some of which I discuss in other videos. In today's short lesson, I would like to discuss chapter division and how it impacts people's understanding, or should I say misunderstanding, of this chapter. The Tanakh, what Christians call the Old Testament, was not divided into chapters, the chapters that we are familiar with. While the Torah was divided into parshiot, sections for weekly reading, nothing similar to the chapter divisions we know today existed. That means no numbered chapters and verses until the 13th century. In the 9th and 10th centuries, the Masoretes, the scribes who invented vowel and cantillations markings that we use today, did mark the ends of what we would call chapters, or could call chapters, with the Hebrew letter samech, like this, from the amazing Aleppo Codex. This, for example, shows the beginning of the traditional chapter that contains within it all of Isaiah 53. If it were numbered, it would be chapter 22, so it's clear that the Jewish and Christian chapter divisions do not match up. The traditional Jewish chapter begins at chapter 52, verse 7, and ends at chapter 55, verse 12. Well, just to prove my point, this image from the Aleppo Codex is of the beginning of chapter 53. And note, there are no special markings other than that ghastly red arrow that I inserted that indicates that this is a chapter division. In order to further prove my point, here are images from the same verse from the great Isaiah scroll, which has been dated by both radiocarbon dating and paleographical scribal dating to be from, at the very least, 100 BCE. First is an image of Isaiah 52, verse 7. Note that omega that I've circled. It appears in exactly the same place as that samach that we saw in the Aleppo Codex. Well, this proves nothing, but it is interesting. And here is the beginning of Isaiah 53. Okay, according to Christian tradition, the Tanakh was divided into the books and chapters that everybody uses today by Stephen Langdon, the Archbishop of Canterbury, again, sometime in the early 13th century. As we've seen, these divisions are very different from the traditional Jewish divisions. For example, in the traditional Jewish division, the books of Samuel, Kings, and Chronicles are single books, unlike the Christian division, where each of these books are divided into two parts. For the most part, Langdon did a reasonable job dividing his chapters, but there are cases where his choice of chapter division is clearly problematic, and one of the most problematic is, surprise, Isaiah 53. The reason for this is that it establishes a break in the narrative which disconnects the chapter from the very important verses that precede it. The question will always remain if Langdon did this purposefully. Okay, let's examine the problem that Langdon's chapter division causes. Chapter 53 begins as follows. Who would have believed our report, and to whom was the arm of the Lord revealed? Something very important is missing. It's clear that the above verse is a quotation. Well, who's speaking? Who's asking the question? See, the chapter division hides the crucial information that this is a quotation, and it hides the identity of the speaker from the innocent reader as well. And without knowing this crucial information, the reader is left to assume. But why assume when we can know by reading the final verse of chapter 52? Is this perhaps a crude attempt by Archbishop Langdon to hide something? Okay, so let's read that last verse of chapter 52 and then the first verse of chapter 53 as they should be read together. So shall he cast down many nations, kings shall shut their mouths because of him, for what they had not been told them they saw, and what they had not heard they gazed. Who would have believed our report, and whom was the arm of the Lord revealed? Most of chapter 53, is spoken by the kings of many nations. They are lamenting about someone's suffering, how they and their nations caused the suffering of the servant. That I discuss in another video. Thank you, Kol Tuv, and God bless.